maybe something that's just interesting and fun. And all of us here at SHR really appreciate space travel, really appreciate SpaceX, obviously Elon Musk. Um, and it was just something that we thought maybe you folks would start to enjoy if we did something outside of politics on all of our networks or outlets, I should say, not our networks. So here you go. It's T minus 22 minutes. The SpaceX commentators are talking, and I'm going to let them talk and just give you some insight as they go through just the pre-liftoff, the liftoff, what to expect, what we can see, and then as we get down into the final couple moments into the launch, um, I'll come back in and talk for just a few minutes. And yeah, this is going to be exciting. It's really exciting. The amount of progress that has been made in space travel has been significant, and it's something that I think let's go side by side. I think we overlook as a nation. It's so funny. I remember growing up, obviously the Challenger disaster, there are sad parts in space travel, but there are also some pretty amazing parts of space travel that we got to see. I grew up I watching the space shuttles. Obviously I was not around when we landed on the moon, but watching all of the progress that was made since we landed on the moon, how quickly we that's the other part that's amazing is how quickly we went from, hey, we gotta start a space program to, oh, by the way, there's somebody driving a car on the moon right now. American ingenuity at its finest. American drive, and yeah, it was a competition with the Soviets. Was there a military and tactical reason? Absolutely. We didn't know what was out there per se at that time, and we wanted to get ahead of the game. But it's also just the technology. You look back at some of the amazing astronauts and engineers and scientists and all the folks that made it happen originally. It was just incredible. And the astronauts who got on those first couple of launches, um, you think about John Glenn, Neil Armstrong, all those guys, Buzz Aldrin, and they knew that they were going up. And I think the running joke from all the astronauts was like, "Oh yeah, no, we're going to fly into space on the on equipment made by the lowest government bidder." Um, but to get on that rocket and know that you're going to have this huge explosion a couple of stories below you, and you're going to get fired into outer space, and not really be sure if you're going to make it back, that takes stones. It, for lack of a better term. And then to say, hey, I think I can design a rocket and put it into space. When we had ideas, but really we were still in the infantile stage, the infant stage of rocket science and missile launches and getting up into the atmosphere and satellites and all that stuff. It was tiny. I mean, it was just so we knew so little. We were able to use science for a lot of it, but we knew so little about it. And now we're catching rockets after they fall out of the sky in a giant set of tongs. Like it's fun to me to see where we're at. And one of the things I enjoy about stuff like this, and I know Jersey Joe, he lives right there, so he gets to watch this. Well, when it's in Florida, I think this one's coming up out of Texas. But when you look at the incredible feats that have been advanced, and you look at just the science and technology, but it's still, and I think this is I know it's unmanned, but even the ones that are going up to the space station and stuff, this is all newer technology. This is all still newer science. Yeah, a lot of the basic sciences were there. But as these evolve, as the fuels evolve, as the structure evolved, as the technology evolves, as all of it evolves, you think about how far computers have come in the last 15 years, 20 years, right? And this is way, way beyond that. And it's lost its majesty. I'm glad to see it starting to come back. I'm glad to see more people are really starting to be interested in space travel. You know, I don't think I'll be alive when we land on Mars. Maybe I will be. But the fact that we're going back to the moon is super cool to me. And I think it's good for our nation. I think it's good for the collective because it's one of those things that, politics aside, and I know people will trash Elon Musk and trash SpaceX to a point because Elon Musk is associated and, well, started it and owns it. But if you can look past that, if you can get that out of your system, if you can be honest about how cool this is, then you can start to appreciate it. Your kids, kids should be watching stuff like this in classrooms. I hope they are. I'm going to ask my daughter tonight if they watched it, because stuff like this is a science teacher's dreams. And stuff like this is what motivates young people to get into sciences or become astronauts or do all of that, you know? This is what motivates you. And watching this, like, I'm almost 50 years old. I'm like a kid watching these now. For a while, I just kind of wasn't, what's the word I'm looking for? I wasn't engaged because I didn't know if they would be, I didn't understand the advances that were made. That's probably a good way of putting it. But now as I get older, and now as I understand the feat, and I don't understand how it works, don't get me wrong. I just understand, like, they're putting this rocket that potentially will go to the moon and Mars into the sky. Cool. It goes into space. That's unbelievably cool. Oh, and we're going to catch it, as we see right here, in a pair of giant tongs. What? It's insane. It's crazy to me. But it's happening. And it's happening with Americans. And I'm sure there are a bunch of other people from other countries that are involved in it, but this is an American thing. This is an American company, ingenuity. We're going back into space and we're doing it with exuberance and excitement like we did years ago. And I think more and more people are starting to get that. I think more and more people are starting to be excited by that. And like I said, throw your politics out. Don't ignore it. There's a rocket and a launch pad that's going to be going up in the sky in 15 minutes, going around the world and coming back down, and we're going to catch it. Let that be your focus. Let your kids be a part of it. Let your kids be motivated by it. You know, so much goes on in this world that we just take for granted. Computers. Have you ever tried to explain to an 8-year-old why they can't have internet when you're out driving around? And they're like, what do you mean? It's everywhere. The internet's just there. And you go back to the times that we had dial up. And you're like, man, how do you not understand, like, how incredible it is that you can just pick up your phone and search up, right? That's a small feat if you think about it. It took engineering, it took science, it took technology, yes, but it's still, for us, it was like, wow, it came out of the phone cord and you had to dial up and listen to the right? And now these kids, like, it's so just commonplace now that they're just like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean we're on the highway in the middle of nowhere and I can't watch YouTube, right? Space cannot become that. Space travel should not become that. This is so incredible. It's so inspiring. You know, it is, you think so much was made of the International Space Station when it first went up. So much of it was. And now it's just like, oh, yeah, there's a couple people, circling around the earth, just doing space tests and living up there full time. And that doesn't blow people away. You know, because the younger generations, it's been up there, what, 20 years? Something like that. So they grew up with it being normal. And it shouldn't be normal. This is something that should just be, it should be awe-inspiring. It should be emotionally inspiring. Like, this is, look at that thing just sitting there. I don't know. I'm not at a loss of words because I'm very rarely at a loss for words, but I am just so flabbergasted that this is just becoming a normal thing. And it used to be, it would be months between launches. You remember those days? Almost a year, maybe. Now they're sending rockets to the space station all the time. They're launching satellites all the time. They're sending unmanned rockets into space to deliver goods all the time and then bringing it back to Earth. You have all of these advancements and how cool it is. This is going to be reusable. They're going to have a lot of these rockets. They were talking earlier about making they want to be able to launch one every 10 minutes or 15 minutes for a while and make one every couple of days with enough manpower and woman power or whatever you want to call it to do it. There's people are overlooking how much investment, how much effort is being put into normalizing space travel. It's just unbelievable. It used to be if you wanted to be one of the four astronauts, you needed to wait for a launch. You had to qualify. You had to be, qualified for that specific launch. And it was unbelievable. I don't know if you remember growing up, astronauts were superheroes to a lot of people, right? They're usually these military folk that did these amazing things. And then it was like, okay, it's a scientist who wasn't in the military, but they can do this cool stuff. And it's still like that. But eventually the plan is that the common person, as long as they can pass a health screen and have, the ability to do so, is going to be able to get to Mars. That's the end goal for now. That doesn't mean it won't expand beyond that. And then, they're talking about building a launch station from the moon. The moon. We haven't been to the moon in what, 40 years? Wait, longer. 60 years? And now they're talking like, oh yeah, we're going to build a base up on the moon and then we're going to be able to launch off that base. Like it's nothing. The moon is just a stepping stone at this point. Think about how crazy that is. The moon is a stepping stone to Mars. And in 10 minutes and 42 seconds, we are going to have a test for that. And this is supposed to go up, circle the Earth, and then we're going to catch it. It's at 6th flight. But you look at these graphics they're showing right now and what their plans are to land these rockets on the moon. It's incredible to me. It should be incredible to you. And maybe I'm the only nerd right now. Maybe I'm the only one fanboying out a little bit because of how cool this is. But I don't know. If you're in the chat room, let me know. If you're wherever you're watching from, please like and subscribe. We normally, like I said, cover politics. We normally do talk shows. But this one's going to be different. This is just... I just want to see how this goes, and I figured everybody else in the SHR media that's liking and watching can do it as well. It is so cool. I mean, just look at that shot. Look at that picture right there. Here, let me blow this up for you. Just that rocket out over the ocean, right on the edge in Texas, just chilling, just waiting to go. But think about, like I said, I know I'm getting old. And I know, if you're under 30 even, this probably won't be all that awe-inspiring to you. But where they want to go with this, where Elon Musk and others, it's not just Elon, where they want to go, they want to leave this thing that's floating behind me. And they want to go to the moon, then build a base, a fort. Remember building forts and tree houses and stuff growing up? Yeah, he's doing that on the moon. Not just him, but they're doing that on the moon. That's what they want to go. And then after that, they're going to get all the materials they need up there to launch from the moon to head to Mars. It's awesome. It's so awesome that this is happening on American soil. This is happening in America. This is another thing that makes our nation amazing. And I can be proud of it, even though I didn't lift a finger to put a rocket into space once in my life. And God, nobody would ever, any intelligent person would never let me near a rocket. But I'm just proud to be able to sit here in the same country as this is about to happen, as the other launches are about to happen. And I was saying to myself, maybe our fans will enjoy this. Maybe it's just something outside of it. And at some point, maybe we'll have somebody come on and do a show about space and space travel and stuff like that. I mean, that's the plan when we talk about expanding the network, is to have different types of shows. But that would be awesome. Actual space travel show, or actual, get some astronauts in to be interviewed. That would be super cool. Past astronauts, what have you. But right now, in 7.5 minutes, and as we get closer, I'm going to shut my mouth and I'm just going to let you watch. But really take this in. Like I said, if you have kids, if you want to inspire them, this is something to watch. Get your kids to watch this. Make them understand or appreciate. And like I said, who knows what that inspires them to do. All of these folks that worked on this, that fly on these, that develop these, they were all inspired by earlier space launches. And it's still, to quote Star Trek, the final frontier. Because right now, the moon is the frontier. We know what's past that because of satellites and stuff, but we haven't been there. We haven't been there. And it's still a mystery to us as to what's really out there. We have an idea, but to actually get boots on the ground, to actually get people out there to learn more about what's beyond this planet and eventually this solar system. Again, not in my lifetime. You think, I quoted Star Trek earlier. You think of shows like Star Trek and, Star Wars to a point, but that's more a purely space-based one. Star Trek was, the Earth, going beyond the Earth and into other planets and other systems and all that other stuff. And all that stuff, inspired so much and so many of these people, I guarantee you. They talk about I don't know if you remember the show Scrubs, but in the medical field for a while, they were talking about the Scrubs effect. How many people got into the medical career because of that show? The same thing applies here. Watching these launches is what inspired people to be involved in it. And I just think it's incredible. You can have you can do some of the coolest stuff in the world. I'll say this right now. You can be the number one athlete in the world at something. You can hit a baseball 500 feet. You can, whatever. Throw a football, kick a football, whatever. Oh yeah, I can do this and I can do that, and I can be the richest. I can, like Richard Branson, and he's got his own little program going with Virgin, but like, you remember Richard Branson was everywhere. He was climbing Everest at one point, I think. He windsurfs, he paraglides, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever been an astronaut? Well, no. Right? How do you even come to that conversation with somebody who's actually been in space? And I'm not even talking about like the Jeff Bezos that went up and, went onto the edge of space and came back down. I mean actual astronauts, the ones on the space station, the ones who worked and lived in space, spent time in space, right? That is still one of the most amazing feats that we as mankind know. Is like, whoa, you've been to outer space? You're an astronaut, right? Think about that. Like, you think about how that, like, if you met that person, the awe that you would be in. And the same thing with these launches, these tests, catching the rocket into the set of tongs, as I like to call it, because it's like kitchen tongs, right? They just boom, grabbed it. It's good. It's crazy to me, and I'm not even a big like scientific knowledgeable person, as you can tell as I speak. I'm just a normal person who thinks this stuff is so incredibly cool. And now we're 3.5 minutes. At 3 minutes, I'm going to kick it over. I'll turn the sound on, and I will kick over to the X feed or the SpaceX feed for the rest of this. And I will remain silent and let them talk. But man, this is just fantastic. And this is a great day for America. Another great day for America. Like I said, there should be something that should bring us all together, even where we may politically disagree. But with that, I turn you over to the SpaceX navigators and the SpaceX feed, and I hope you enjoy it.
You know, really putting armor on the tower, making all of those things work, played a huge role in making that catch possible, and looking forward to hopefully seeing that happen again. And of course, sending our first payload to space. You can see the banana. It's very tightly secured, but I assure you it does have some room to float around. So once we're in a zero gravity environment, we should see our first Starship zero gravity indicator
is all that's on this for payload.
And that's looking right in. That's where we're going to have Starlinks. That's our PEZ deployer. So getting its ride to space. So coming up on about 2.5 minutes, we are closing out on all of our prop load. Yep, just heard that our fill drains are starting to close. So that means we're no longer going to be flowing propellant into the booster and the ship. We're going to do what's called pushbacks. So all of that propellant in the ground systems is going to get pushed back to the tanks, clear out everything around the pad right before we light those 33 engines and take off. Just quick reminder, you're going to see fire start at the bottom. You're going to see the deflector start at about 10 seconds before launch. Lots of water to help dissipate all that heat, all that sound. And then the engine starting up in 3 different groups. And then about a second after T0, we should see liftoff. About 2.5 minutes into the flight, a little bit longer, we'll see hot staging. And that's when we're going to be listening really close on those loops to see if we're going to be bringing the booster back for a catch today. Do always want to caution, it's never a guarantee. We've done this once. We'll see if we do it again. We're only going to do it if the booster and the tower are looking really good before we attempt to bring it back here. But coming up on a minute, not tracking any holds on the board right now. So as long as we don't have any last second things, which do happen. All right, flight director just confirmed T-minus 1 minute. Key moment to look at in 10 seconds, that T-minus 40. And we flew right through that.
Flight directors go for launch.
All right, we're now T-minus 20 seconds until liftoff of Starship Flight 6. This will mark our second attempt to catch the Super Heavy booster at the launch tower, as well as
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Booster Raptor, chamber pressure nominal.
Booster and ship, avionics, power, and telemetry nominal.
All right, we're just a little over a minute
maximum
into flight.
Dynamic pressure.
We're about 6 miles away, so all the sound's still hitting us here. Hearing good call-outs that power telemetry nominal, that's flying straight and true. We do see all 33 Raptor engines lit up on telemetry screens. At this point, we've passed through that point of maximum aerodynamic pressure, that max Q. Now, coming up in just a little over a minute from now is going to be hot staging. So we're going to see the 6 engines on the ship ignite while still attached to the booster. Just before that, we'll see all but 3 center engines on the booster shut down. In what we call MECO, it's most engines cut off instead of main engine. And so while we continue to watch it go up, a lot of our flight controllers looking at all the systems around the tower. Again, we have to send a manual command. Just about 30 seconds away from hot staging. And we heard the tower is go for catch.
Booster engine cutoff.
The return flag is set for true.
Ship engine startup. Stage separation.
All right, hot staging confirmed. 6 out of 6 lit on the ship. Booster boost back going. We heard that we are go for catch. Kate, Jesse, take the views. Hopefully I got a booster coming home real soon.
Wow, from our view here, Dan, great views of planet Earth behind that super heavy booster. Right now it is performing the
Ship
boost back burn.
phenomenal.
Good news there, telling us that the pressures inside the ship are good. That is the second stage or the upper portion of the vehicle. Follow along with the telemetry on the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, booster is currently, super heavy is currently in its boost back burn. This boost back burn.
Avionics power and telemetry nominal.
This boost back burn lasts just a little bit over a minute. So we've got approximately 30 seconds left.
We've had shutdown of that boost back burn. Up next will be hot stage jettison. The view from the camera on the left, or from the booster on the left-hand side of your screen, and then tracking cam there on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll see those grid fins.
Booster offshore divert.
And we can also see that the hot stage has been jettisoned.
Yes, visual confirmation of that there on your screen, which is great. Now the next
Starship is following a nominal trajectory.
The next step for booster is going into that landing burn. Again, it'll light up 13 of those engines and then pare down to 3 engines right before booster catch.
All right, now just real quick, we did hear the call out, booster offshore divert. Unfortunately, that means that we are no-go for the catch. As we said before, both the tower and the vehicle, as well as the operators on console, have been actively evaluating the commit criteria for that return to the launch tower. And unfortunately, we did not have a pass on those commit criteria. So we are no-go.
Unfortunately, they're not going to be able to do the
catch.
catch. They're going to have to divert the main to
We're
offshore
constantly
for recovery.
evaluating the criteria for catch.
But
There's a lot of things that need
launch
to go
itself
well
is
in order to
going
line
fine.
that up. Unfortunately, today we will forego booster catch today. But what you're seeing on your screen is ship currently making its way towards the Indian Ocean. Still looking good so far.
Exactly. So views there of the booster on the left-hand side of your screen, views of the ship on the right-hand side of your screen. Now, we said before that it was not guaranteed that we would be able to make a tower catch today. So while we were hoping for it, like we said, it was pretty epic on attempt 1, but the safety of the teams and the public and the pad itself are paramount. So we are accepting no compromises in any of those areas.
Exactly. And we're still going to get a lot of good flight data with booster even, but especially with ship. Again, we have an additional objective today to do an in-space relight of a Raptor engine, which again will help us set us up for being able to do deorbit burns, which is
Ship chamber pressure phenomenal.
which is important for orbital flights. And what you're seeing on your screen is a view from Super Heavy as it's making its way back down to Earth.
Yeah, once again, we are attempting an offshore landing of the Super Heavy booster. So we have seen this before, and it is still very fun to watching it come down for a soft splashdown off the Gulf Coast of Texas. We can see it there re-entering. We saw earlier those grid fins. There are 4 hypersonic grid fins. Or we can see that the landing burn has begun on the Super Heavy booster.
And same pattern, 13 engines will light, gone down to 3 just as we expected. And what an incredible view of splashdown that we got today. Super heavy.
Yeah, I'm sure the buoy cam views will be pretty awesome once again. So we'd like to confirm a water landing once again for the Super Heavy booster. Congrats to the SpaceX team for making that milestone as well. Now, ship continues to look good. We can see that it is, while all of that was happening, the crowd here in Hawthorne continuing to react to all these amazing views that we're getting. The next milestone is
Starship is in terminal guidance.
Great news there. Starship terminal guidance, referring to what we see here on our screen, the upper stage, at about 8 minutes 35 seconds or so, we have ship engine cutoff, which will be the cutoff of the Raptor engines. We can see on our screen ship giving us some incredible views.
The fact that you can
brought
still
to
see
us
these
by
live
Starlink. This view is also very interesting because we can see
from Starlink, you're watching live in outer space. Again, a technology that is just unbelievable. They had to do a water landing for the booster, unfortunately. Looks like it made a soft landing, so they'll be able to recover it and set it back up, which is great. But this is still just incredible. Absolutely incredible technology, and I'll let them keep talking.
Everything continuing to look awesome for ship.
Full view looking aft on ship here.
Ship FTS is saved. Nominal orbit insertion.
There's that call out we were waiting for. Confirmation of good orbital insertion for ship today.
It has been a very exciting afternoon so far. We'd like to send it back over to Dan, who can give us that live view experience. Dan, once again, are you okay after witnessing another Starship launch?
Yeah, totally fine. You guys have to be jealous. This is the only way to do this. This is fantastic. No, it was really cool to see a lift off 33 out of 33. Didn't go for the booster catch today. Initially, we were good, and then we tripped a commit criteria and did the offshore divert. So we went and did that water landing, as everybody saw. We'll dig into it a little bit more, but again, we've done it once, we've now done it twice. We're going to keep trying to do it, as this is just a core capability of Starship and what's going to make it so incredible. There's a lot left. We're just about almost 10 minutes into this flight, so about 50 plus minutes still to go. Ship nominal orbit, so it's on its way around the planet. It's going to attempt to do an in-space burn. We're going to light one of those Raptor engines, the sea level ones in the middle, just to help demonstrate that we can relight in that microgravity environment. Really critical for deorbit burns as we start to do some orbital missions in the not too distant future. And then following that, we'll see a ship entry, maybe a splashdown. As you guys said, we're really going to be pushing ship on this one. We're pretty much intentionally putting it in places where we expect it might not do so great. And all that's to try and help us learn, see if we were a little too conservative. And then maybe that opens up more capability for when we start catching them. But I'll check back in with everybody in a little bit. I'm going to tune in and watch the ship fly around planet Earth. And hopefully we see it re-entering in the not too distant future. Back over to you guys.
Thanks, Dan. Development testing, by definition, is unpredictable, which we saw with Super Heavy splashing down in the Gulf of Mexico today, but that is exactly why we test. As is standard for these tests, the area around the pad and along the flight path was cleared prior to launch, and we expect the road and beach to remain closed until further notice.
Yeah, testing development flight hardware in a flight environment is what enables our teams to quickly learn and execute design changes and hardware upgrades to improve the probability of success in the future. Please do not attempt to approach the booster in the water for your safety as well as for that of our team that will be working on recovery. Now, we are going to continue, though. The mission is not done.
Exactly. The mission's not over. Ship is still coasting, but it has been nonstop since liftoff. And with the booster having completed its job for the day, we are going to take a short break for the next 35 minutes or so while ship continues to coast before reentry. Now, as with previous flights, Starlink may enable us to talk to the ship through reentry with no communication blackout. Now, we are still testing Starlink during this phase of flight, so nothing is completely certain.
Yeah, so if we do have views, we will be sure to bring those to you live. And of course, one of those views include that of our, as we said before, surprise payload, the Banana. And we are looking forward to it. So we're going to come back in a few minutes, around T plus 35 minutes.
Exactly. Views or no views, we'll see you back here at T plus 40 minutes for our coverage of Starship's reentry, flip maneuver, landing burn, and hopefully see a splashdown.
So that was it. That was the launch. It is still up. I'm still watching it over here. It's still going. It's just incredible. And I'm going to leave the stream up. I am going to mute for about 15 minutes. I'll come back when they start going. So if you want to just check this out, this, where is it? Right here. Oop. There it is. So that's the view right now from the spaceship, Starship, excuse me. I'm sure there are plenty of people that are going to be yelling at me for getting that wrong. And enjoy the ride. I'll be back soon. And as a reminder, you're watching the SHR Media broadcast covering the Starship 6 test flight. The banana you were seeing, for those who you don't know, that's the only payload. Leave it to SpaceX to have a little fun with it, right? A little bit of a payload. Imagine just being like, who came up with the idea of the single banana flying through space? You can't say they don't enjoy what they do, that's for sure. We'll be back. The Starship right now is flying through space. They're going to have reentry soon. They're going to cut off the engines and do a relight in space, which is something I believe they have not done before in their testing to make sure that the Raptor engines respond appropriately before bringing it back towards Texas. I believe it is scheduled to be a water landing. I don't believe they ever intended to try to catch this. They could not catch the booster. Something in their scanners and all the other things and technology that they have that I don't understand said that it wasn't appropriate to do so. It wasn't safe. So they did a soft water landing, which they were very successful with. They've done that numerous times. They've also landed things on the barge. It's still incredible to me. But the commentators will be back shortly as we get closer to it finishing its loop around the Earth, essentially, and start coming back in. And I also will return. But these are live via Starlink, all of these images that you are seeing. So that in itself is incredible technology. You are watching live from inside Starship 6. The banana's floating. If you look really close, you can see it's floating a little bit. But you're watching it live, which is just absolutely incredible. The technology that SpaceX, Starlink are able to do and perform and have created is just spellbinding. It's beyond my comprehension. If I wasn't seeing it, I don't know if I would believe it. If you told me 20 years ago that I'd be watching a banana float through space on what was once Twitter, I would have just laughed in your face. And here we are. Be back shortly here on the SHR Media Network. Like I said, please like and subscribe wherever you're watching from. It would help us greatly, help us beat all the algorithms, get the message out. Something different, a little step away from politics for a bit, right here on the SHR Media Network.
And we are just about 35 minutes into today's flight test, continuing to get some live views from Starship itself as it continues to make its way around the globe. We are coming up on what we will hopefully see is our in-space relight demonstration. This will be firing up one of those 3 sea level Raptors on the very aft end of the ship and essentially reigniting it while we're in that microgravity environment in Earth orbit. We had attempted this once previously on Flight 3, but ended up skipping it when we had some attitude control issues with the ship. And we are on the dark side of the planet right now, so views are going to be a little bit dark, but hopefully we see some engine light come on as we do this relight test. This is a pretty critical capability for doing deorbit burns. This is not a deorbit burn. Want to stress that we're on a trajectory where if we didn't fire off the engine at all, we are definitely coming home. Ooh, seeing some thunderstorms down on the ground. That's pretty cool. But this is not a deorbit burn. If we didn't fire this engine, we're on a intentional suborbital trajectory. So no matter what, we're coming in over the Indian Ocean. Firing off the engine does change your exact splashdown point a little bit, but we've got this keep out zone across the entire Indian Ocean that we made sure was clear ahead of flight, and we continue to monitor during. But we're going to aim for that and hopefully see this relight test coming on in about a minute. It's just going to be one of these engines, and it uses what's called the header tank. So these small spherical tanks in the very top of Starship up in the nose cone. They don't require nearly as much gas to pressurize as your main tank, so they're really useful for any in-orbit maneuvers, and then for landing burn. So if we make it to a landing burn today, we'll be using them for that as well. So we should be coming up in just about the next minute. It should be under a minute now away from that expected ship burn. And again, we've relit Raptors pretty frequently. We just did it with the landing burn and that boost back burn on the booster, and we've done it on ship landing burns. We just haven't done it in this microgravity environment where your propellant management and a lot of other things are different, as you're not weighed down by the force of Earth's gravity. And just did the call out for startup.
And there's
some light. There's that Raptor relit.
There's the Raptor relighting
and
on the
shut
Raptor
down.
engines. Test successful. So it
All right, there you have it. The first time ever lighting a Raptor while in outer space, other than our ascent burn. So really cool to see that relit. That's a pretty critical capability that we're going to need when we're doing orbital missions in the not too distant future. So check another one off. That was a really cool. That was an objective we really wanted to hit on this one, and so good to see Ship knock that one out in orbit. But for now, we're going to coast for just a little bit longer, and then it'll be time for ship entry. So we'll get the usual light show as we return from hypersonic velocities. We're just starting to do the entry prep for that, so we're going to get the flaps positioned, and then it's going to start taking the brunt of all of that heat as you're coming in from well in excess of 10,000 miles an hour. That's all going to build up a lot of heat as you're encountering an increasing atmosphere, building up that friction. And we're going to see how the tiles fare. We've also got some pretty cool tile experiments that we'll talk about in a little bit. But coming up real soon, ship re-entry, successful relight, and we'll start this entry part soon.
I was just thinking as I was sitting here watching this, you're watching the SHR Media Network. Starship flight test number 6 originated in Texas. The vehicle's getting ready now. It should be dropping
Starship is at 100
back
kilometers
towards.
altitude. Good attitude for atmospheric entry.
Oop, and you just heard approval for atmospheric entry, so it's a go. They did test those Raptor engines, relight them up beyond the atmosphere. It's the first time they were able to do that. That was incredible. They were not able to catch the booster. It did make a soft water landing, so they're able to recover it and still reuse it. It would have been cool to see the catch, but it's still cool nonetheless. I was just thinking, as I was watching this with all these different views, how great it would be if we were, and as you can see now with the different views, we're back to the light side of the Earth. It's getting back to daylight. But it'd be super cool if at some point during these launches, if you had options looking at all the different cameras and choosing which one you want to view from, almost like the webcams used to be back in the day. Remember that? I mean, they still have webcams, but you'd be able to go to a site and pick which view of something you wanted, and I'm sure you still can in some places. But all these live views are coming in via Starlink. Obviously, another Elon Musk business, but it's streaming all of these views live via internet to the ground, to you, via us, if you're watching on our stream. But yeah, it'd be cool like if I could just pick which view I wanted. And right now they have a block of views up, which is nice, but they didn't earlier. Check in on the banana for this particular flight, or check all the different exterior views. But as you see that light starting to come back in the different views, that means we're getting closer. It is starting to drop in altitude. It's now back to 90 kilometers over the Earth. It was up to, I think, 180 at one point. Apparently, they have a whole bunch of tile tests being done. The tiles on the outside of the vehicle, which just absorb extraordinary amounts of heat coming back through the atmosphere. Or at this speed right now, you're hypersonic.
Welcome back to Starship 6.
And I'll turn it back over to Starship.
It has been an exciting day so far. We lifted off from Starbase at 4 p.m. Central Time. The Super Heavy booster and ship had a successful separation, as well as a good boost back burn and good separation of the hot stage adapter. We did not attempt a return to the launch site and catch attempt today when strict criteria were not met, and the Super Heavy booster executed a planned divert to a landing burn and soft splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, obviously we were hoping to come back to the tower, but This was a test, and we knew that it was a very viable possibility.
Starship is at 85 kilometers. Flaps now have control of the vehicle.
All right, great news there. Turning our attention over to the star of the show here, giving us these amazing views once again. We heard the call out there telling us that the Starship vehicle is now 83 kilometers above, coming up around T plus, well, now actually, the ship, as you can see, is beginning to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. As a reminder, one of the main goals of today's flight test is for the ship to make it through the extreme heat of reentry and to do so in a controlled manner. Now, reentry is typically a portion of flight where we don't have communication capability with the spacecraft because it's re-entering at or around orbital velocity, which is roughly 8 kilometers per second or about 5 miles per second. Now, at those speeds, yep, pretty fast. The spacecraft is moving through the atmosphere rather quickly, and that results in friction, as we can see that starting to happen on our screen, and this creates a plasma field around the vehicle. That blanket of plasma distorts communication frequencies, so it's not uncommon to experience brief blackouts in communication.
Starship is approaching the peak heating phase of entry.
And we just heard we're getting into the peak heating phase. We're getting these views courtesy of Starlink. We've got 4 different terminals on the ship itself. It's what's really allowed us to get real-time data during what's otherwise been just a mystery box, essentially, for spacecraft design, where when you're re-entering through the atmosphere, at least getting anything in real time hasn't ever been possible before. But we're able to not just get these views, but real-time telemetry from the ship as it's coming through. Do really want to stress that we are really pushing the ship today. The heat shield is not in the same configuration as it was last flight, where we had a team of ship techs do just an otherworldly task, replacing the entire heat shield, thousands of tiles, installing a backup ablative, and that pretty much set us up to do a pinpoint landing on Flight 5. We did not do that with this one. We have some backup in those really sensitive areas around the flap, but this is an older generation heat shield. And knowing we weren't going to do that, we even went and removed some extra tiles. There are some missing tiles on the nose cone where we're testing some backups. There are some steel covered tiles in a couple of different spots. And there's also a whole lot more steel of the ship showing. As you guys talked about, we gave it a little bit of a haircut, a couple hundred tiles trimmed off the sides. And that's where we might have catch fittings in the future. But ooh, color's starting to come in. So it looks like things are going to start heating up, Kate and Jesse.
Yeah, fun fact, Dan, we actually removed 2,100 heat shield tiles from Starship in order to basically present that necessary receding line, which you kind of can see there in your view. Think back to previous flights. The heat shield line came up further on the vehicle, and just like Dan said, we want to test the vehicle beyond what we think it is capable of carrying based on our simulations and calculations. So once again, to just be super plain, don't be surprised if we see some wackadoodle stuff happen here. We won't be. There are a number of things that we are testing out intentionally to see what the ship can take.
Yeah, exactly. And knowing what those limits are will really help us design the vehicle of the future. Essentially, removing those tiles helps us remove a lot of weight from the vehicle, a lot of things that might potentially need refurbishment in the future. And the goal is to come up with a heat shield pattern or design that we don't have to refurbish. We can just continue to use it over and over again. And that's why we're changing some of those tiles and moving stuff around, removing a lot of those tiles, as Kate has been mentioning.
Exactly. And, looking forward to the Starship capability of the future, we want to be able to catch Starship like we do with boosters. And so the next flight, we want to better understand where we can install catch hardware not necessarily to actually do the catch, but to see how that hardware holds up in those spots. And today's flight will help inform, does the stainless steel hold up like we think it may based on experiments that we conducted on Flight 5. Now, continuing to look, amazing views. Yeah, Dan, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, there's so much on this flight that we're doing to try and, make all the ships that we're about to start flying even better, just really understand what their capabilities are going to be. We've got kind of the next gen ship lined up for Flight 7. It's got all of those heat shield upgrades and everything. And one of the things that we're going to be doing that's most interesting, and one of the reasons we wanted daylight, is we're going to be flying pretty aggressively as ship comes in. We're going to be kind of nose down, and we've done it in wind tunnels. We've done it in simulations. You might see the flaps really flapping around trying to control the vehicle. We're betting we might have a little bit more capability than we think in just the analysis, but always a chance that bet doesn't pay off. That just helps us know, like, what are our
Starship
limits.
is now halfway through the peak heating phase of entry.
Sweet. Halfway there. Halfway home, guys.
Yeah, and if you guys, again, can follow along with the altitude and the speed of ship as it's making its way back down to Earth, bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Speed is still going really, really fast. Again, as it gets closer to Earth, we'll see that altitude drop a little bit faster. It's kind of dropping pretty slow right now. And again, as we get closer and closer to literally the surface of the water, then we'll start to see that speed pick up. And if we can make it through this re-entry, we will attempt to do that flip maneuver once again and splash down in the ocean.
Exactly. Like we've been saying, we are testing beyond the perceived limits of the vehicle. We want to go learn more about the ship, and this is a great opportunity to do that. So really pushing the flight hardware in a flight environment to help inform these future designs. As we've mentioned, it has a different heat shield. This heat shield is not the same generation as what we flew last time. This one is one generation older. So we are also testing out new secondary thermal protection materials. So basically, like, if the heat shield isn't in this one spot, can this other material protect the metal is the thinking there. Also, checking of the ship's structural strength in those areas where we're looking to add that ship catch hardware just to see if it survives entry. So yeah, as we've been saying, we've done a lot of calculations and simulations. This view right here is super cool. This is looking out from the aft engine bay, basically at the bottom of Starship. Then on the center left-hand panel, if you will, we have one of the forward Starship flaps. So one of the flaps located at the top of the vehicle. Underneath that is one of the aft end flaps, like the one that we see in the main picture there on the right-hand side of your screen. Now, these views as the vehicle continues to enter the Earth's atmosphere, drawing a crowd once again here at SpaceX in Hawthorne as folks tune in as the mission continues on. Now, the next event that we have coming up, we should hear the call out that the vehicle is transonic around T plus 1 hour and 2 minutes or so. That means that the vehicle is traveling near the speed of sound. We say near the speed of sound because there are certain parts of the vehicle where airflow is going faster and other parts where it's going slower. So it kind of teeters there on the brink of the speed of sound. So once we have equal flow on all parts, then we'll hear it subsonic.
Yeah,
and almost real quick, almost a reverse of, I'm sorry, Jesse, almost a reverse of before. We see the Earth starting to come into view. We've got sunrise there over the Indian Ocean. So this is going to look different from any of the re-entries we've had before. And it was specifically so, like, we get as much daylight as possible to see how ship does this. Over to you, Jesse. Sorry about that.
Dan, great minds think alike. That's exactly what I was going to point out, is that we're getting a lot clearer view of the Earth in the background with the different temperatures that we're seeing, with the different colors of that plasma around the ship, which is really, really cool to see. Again, We are pushing the limits of ship today, but so far everything is looking pretty nominal. We'll see how the next few minutes goes.
Yeah, like we've said before, don't be surprised if this is not entirely smooth sailing all the way down to the ocean surface. Similar to Flight 5, we are targeting the same splashdown location in the Indian Ocean, but we are not expecting to recover the vehicle.
Right, and we were getting some glimpses of the flaps. The flaps so far are looking pretty good. We're not seeing any burn through. There's those flaps again in that hinge area, which is our most concerning area there. That's great news for us for now. Again, the next few minutes could change as we continuously push those limits.
Yeah, once we slow down a little bit, once we're subsonic essentially, so I think that's about 1,200 kilometers an hour. Once we're down below that, that's when we're going to kind of dip our nose down and get that more aggressive angle of attack. Normally, we're just belly flop right into the water, pretty much that position. But if we're going to be able to do return to launch sites, we're going to want to be able to fly with a little bit more of an angle of attack, get you a little bit more range as you're coming through. And so this will be just a test to see quite how far can we push it. And obviously, we're going to do these kind of tests way out here in super remote areas before you ever try to bring a ship back to a place like Starbase.
Starship remains on a good entry trajectory. External temperatures are coming down.
All right, great news there. That tells us that we are through the phase of peak heating. So we are expecting these temperatures to continue to come down. Once again, we are targeting a soft splashdown in the Indian Ocean around off the northwest coast of Australia. We can see these beautiful views of planet Earth coming in. Yeah, this is very different where we had nighttime views of the ship as it was re-entering. And now we've got daylight. It is about an hour or so after sunrise there in the Indian Ocean. So pretty cool to see this.
Yeah, and it might not seem like it makes a huge difference, but we do get a little bit more light on ship as well for the camera views that we have, which is very beneficial for us to visually see anything and try and correlate that to any of the sensors or data that we have on the vehicle.
Exactly. That is why we shifted our launch window so that we could have that daylight in order to improve our observations of the vehicle. So not only are we getting all the raw data from all the sensors that are on board Starship, but we also have multiple cameras and assets out there that are watching the vehicle and will also be able to tell us with this visual story that is also very, very important.
And as we get down a little bit lower, the Raptor engines are in their chill phase right now. So just essentially getting them primed to turn on. We're going to use those 3 center engines to do a landing flip and then a landing burn. So we'll come down kind of in that slightly pointed down belly flop and then fire off those engines to flip us around and then do that final landing burn. That should be coming up in just under 5 minutes from now. And then hopefully we start hearing some call outs on transonic and subsonic as we slow down. Again, once you hear Starship as subsonic, keep a close eye on the flaps. They're going to be working overtime essentially to maintain control of the ship as we get a little more aggressive with this.
We can see that we are beginning.
Starship has passed maximum entry dynamic pressure.
All right, great call out there. But we can see on this view here that we do have some heating there on that looks like one of the forward flaps on Starship. This is to be expected. We knew that the vehicle would perform differently than what we had seen on Flight 5. This is actually really good data because it tells us what parts of the vehicle at this, what will soon be a higher angle of attack once we drop down below the speed of sound. We'll have a higher angle of attack, meaning we're going to be flying nose down, basically. So yeah, this is good news, but we can actually, looks like that heating is starting to cool off there.
Yeah, it's a little burn through, Again, it is important to note when we start seeing that through the ship's descent as well. So like Kate was saying, we're getting some really good data here. Looks like the other flaps are doing a little better than the one that has a little burn through, which is some good news. Again, constantly watching. We've got a couple minutes until we're expecting to make it all the way back down to Earth.
Exactly. And like we said before, we are not expecting to recover the ship, although that would be great. It'd be a nice bonus if it happened, but it's not really in our expectations today. We really want to push the hardware, as we've been saying, but really the telemetry and the data and the video that we receive all the way to the end is truly what we're looking for and will help inform the future designs of this vehicle.
We can see some flap movement as the camera is moving around. That's what you're seeing there is the flaps adjusting. We have a camera on one of the flaps there this is the view that you're seeing there. And you can also see the graphic in the bottom.
Starship is slowing down past Mach 1.
And call outs aligning with this. You can see the orientation of the vehicle starting to change. You can follow that graphic at the bottom of your screen. Again, that is why those flaps are changing. They control the orientation of the vehicle.
Yeah, there are four. Go ahead,
Starship
Dan.
has started the subsonic belly flop, remains on a good trajectory.
I was going to say this is when things will start to get a little interesting. So this is when we're moving slower than the speed of sound. You can see that nose slowly start to tip down, and we're going to try and maintain flap control the whole way. But we are just a couple minutes away from hopefully doing a landing flip and landing burn if the flaps can hold together.
Yeah, this is such a cool view. This reminds me of when we first performed the belly flop maneuver on the high altitude test with serial number 8. We saw the ship come back through, and I always wondered what it looked like from the ship's perspective. And this perspective, I think, helps inform that. We will be, as Dan said, we will be dipping down a little further and really be flying nose first.
You can see if you're watching on the speed is slowing down. They expect it to pick up again at some point when they do the flip, but it's now only 6 kilometers above the Earth. So it's going to happen quickly.
I mean, we're looking good so far. We've just got about 5 kilometers in altitude to go. We'll ignite the engines when we're still just a couple hundred meters over the ground, do that flip.
Starship is passing through 5 kilometers altitude, remains on a good trajectory.
I have a feeling this is going to look so cool as it passes through the clouds.
Obligatory shout out to the entire avionics team on Starship.
And there's that nose down orientation.
Now the Raptor engines will relight and help flip the booster back up. This is a more severe flip given the orientation. The engines will shut down prior to the water making impact, prior to the vehicle making impact with the water.
Our ship is doing great so far.
There goes the
There's
ignition.
engines relighting.
It's flipping.
What a great reorientation
And
by
it's going
Starship.
to, wow, it's on 50 miles an hour. The orientation goes.
Into the water.
Holy cow. Holy cow.
And we have ship splashed down in the Indian Ocean.
Some awesome buoy cam action here. Daylight views.
Incredible. We really pushed the limits on shipping and made it all the way back down to Earth.
I am shocked, to be honest. I think many folks are. The fact that it survived all the way through while flying a lesser gen heat shield is just absolutely incredible. And turns out the vehicle had more capability than our calculations predicted. And that is why we test like we fly.
Exactly.
So that was it. It's incredible. They landed it. They pushed it past the limits that they had. passed the expectations. It touched down, it flipped. They had a little heating, as you could see on one of the flaps, but overall, that was just fantastic. Congratulations to SpaceX. Congratulations to Starlink for being able to carry it. Congratulations to all of them. This was a fantastic day, fantastic launch. It was so cool to watch that start to finish. Please, if you're watching this after the fact, throw your comments in, like, subscribe to everything. We're going to end the SHR Media News special here, but we just thought it would be fun to do something a little bit different. And this was definitely different. And thank you to Jersey Joe for inspiring this, because he did this on one of his shows, and that was kind of the inspiration. I was like, yeah, a lot of people would enjoy this, and I certainly would as well. So please like and subscribe. Check us out, shrmedia.com. I am your host, Sean. I host the Edge of Liberty show every Monday and Friday, 12 Pacific, 3 on the East Coast in the afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. We will talk to you soon.